So far in the transfer portal, we have seen a number of big name college athletes heading to new schools or entering their name into the portal and making themselves available. There have been some schools that have really jumped on this and made some incredible additions to their hopeful national championship hopes, and other schools that just can't seem to keep their players. In today's video, we're going to be going through my top 5 winners and losers so far of the transfer portal cycle. There are a lot of teams that you could put in here. I've only got 5. I do want to give some honorable mentions. Kentucky, Texas Tech. Those are a couple of teams that I think could be on this list. Washington as well. There's some good schools. There are a lot of schools that have made some moves. But let me know who you guys think are the big winners and the big losers thus far of the transfer portal cycle. You guys have absolutely loved the transfer portal videos, so I'm going to keep them coming. And without further ado, let's get into it. My first winner and my biggest winner, and that is the Ole Miss Rebels. They have done an absolutely phenomenal job out of acquiring talent. They first went out and got the top linebacker in the portal in Chris Paul Jr., bringing him over from Arkansas, which I think was an incredible pickup for them. Then they went out and got the 2 top edge rushers in Princely Umanmielen and Tyler Barron, who are both going to be incredible additions to this team. Princely in particular is just an absolute beast as a pass rusher. I think they're going to really, really benefit from that. Tyler Barron, a bit raw still, but an incredible athlete. Then they went out and they improved their secondary, getting Tavion Nicholson from Illinois, Key Lawrence from Oklahoma, Decamarion Richardson from Mississippi State, and Tamarian McDonald, also from Tennessee. All are going to play huge pieces. They got some safeties. They got some corners. And this is a team that is returning a lot of their key players. Jackson Dart is coming back for another year. Quinshaw Judkins has another year before he is draft eligible. This team is putting some pieces around him. And on the offensive side, they added one of the top receivers in the portal, adding Juice Wells from South Carolina, who was a little bit banged up this year, but when he was healthy in 2022, we saw just how dynamic this guy can be. The transfer who went from James Madison, and now he ended up playing at South Carolina. Now he is joining Ole Miss. This Ole Miss team has done an incredible job. Lane Kiffin is absolutely cooking with this squad. I think Ole Miss is going to be a top 10 team in the country next year. They were at number 11 this year, and they go out and they add some of the top players available. They are also the favorites to land the top player overall, defensive tackle Walter Nolan from Texas A&M. It's just been an absolute incredible performance from what Ole Miss has been able to do. I think they are the clear number 1 winner. My first loser is the Duke Blue Devils. Haven't really lost a ton. The big one, they lost their head coach, Matt Elko. He decided to go to Texas A&M. After he left, you saw some players into the portal, including Riley Leonard, who in my opinion was the top quarterback available. You saw Aeneas Peebles, RJ Oben, and Jordan Waters all also follow. Peebles has gone to Virginia Tech. Leonard and Oben we'll get to in just a second. Jordan Waters, I believe, went to NC State. But, Duke was a team that was kind of hanging around there. They were a top 25 team for a majority of the season. And they lose some of their key players. Now, I like the head coach hire that they did make, bringing in, I believe it was Manny Diaz from Penn State. Great acquisition there, but it's going to be kind of a rebuild to get some of these guys back. They're in the rumors with a lot of these top quarterbacks. I know Malik Murphy is a guy that they are heavily interested in from Texas, which I think would be a great get. But as of right now, they are one of my 5 losers. We'll talk about Riley Leonard and RJ Oben because they both went to Notre Dame, who are one of my winners. Notre Dame has only made 6 moves. They went out and they got Riley Leonard, who, as I mentioned, was my top quarterback available. This guy is an extremely athletic weapon. He's got a good arm. Ended up dealing with some injuries, but coming into the year, I thought he could have been a 2nd or 3rd round pick. Decided to enter the transfer portal. He's going to Notre Dame, which I think is an excellent spot. And Notre Dame went out and they've got weapons for him. Chris Mitchell from FIU is going to be a huge acquisition. And then Bo Collins from Clemson. Great size for Bo Collins. I think he's going to be a really improved weapon. Clemson was just a mess on the offensive side of the ball this year. He's going to get opportunities here. You got RJ Oben as well, who's a really good defensive end. I think he's going to play a big role for this Notre Dame team. They're bringing back Howard Cross. They're bringing back Riley Mills. They've got Benjamin Morrison still. This is a Notre Dame team that I think is going to be really, really good. They end up getting Mitch Jeter as well, a place kicker, as well as Jordan Clark, the DB from Arizona State. I think Notre Dame, in the 6 moves they've made, have really, really improved their roster and look like they could be a college football playoff team in 2025. At the next loser spot, it is going to be the UCLA Bruins. Pretty much lost their entire secondary. Kamari Ramsey, William Nimmo, and John Humphrey. They lost a lot of their key secondary pieces, lost 3 receivers in Keegan Jones, Cam Brown, and Bradley Schlom. Carson Ryan went to Houston. Jake Wiley, an offensive line guy. But the big one is 5-star Dante Moore. Ended up starting at the beginning of the year. Didn't exactly show a ton of promise, but he was a true freshman. Ends up transferring. We'll get to him in a second as well. And they also fired Chip Kelly. This is a UCLA team that had a lot of promise. You got some edge rushers. They had some pieces here. We're floating around that top 25 for a little bit. You lose a big quarterback prospect. They haven't really made any huge acquisitions either. UCLA's in a tough spot now, and I think you lost some key pieces on that defensive side of the ball. You lost some playmakers, and you lost your quarterback for the next 3 years. So now you got to go fill that position, and it's going to be really tough for them to do. I think because of it, they are one of my losers. Oregon made 3 moves, and I think they made 3 of the best moves of the portal. We just talked about Dante Moore. He goes to Oregon to back up Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel put up fantastic numbers this season for Oklahoma, was looking like a Heisman candidate for quite a while. He goes to Oregon, where he is going to a very quarterback-friendly offense. We saw what they were able to do for Bo Nix. Dylan Gabriel, his last year of eligibility, going to go play with this Oregon team that has a lot of pieces. They also went out and they got Matthew Bedford. They were able to help flip his commitment. Originally committed to Colorado, he ends up going to Oregon. And then you get Dante Moore, who we just talked about, a 5-star quarterback coming out of high school, was rumored to go to Michigan, was rumored at Ohio State, ends up going to Oregon, where he's going to sit under Dylan Gabriel for a year, learn the offense, learn from a experienced college athlete. I think it's going to be a great move in the long run for Dante Moore in his career. This is looking like a Oregon team that's going to the Big Ten that could make some noise, and I am all for it. I think Oregon is a big winner thus far. Another loser for me, we just talked about Oregon. Let's talk about their in-state rival, and that's going to be Oregon State. You lost your head coach, Jonathan Smith. He decides to go to Michigan State, and you see a lot of transfers follow. Aiden Chiles, their rookie or their freshman quarterback, who showed some promise this year for the Beavers, he ends up following Jonathan Smith over to Michigan State. Jake Velling, the tight end as well, does the same thing. You lose DJ Uiagalelei, who, it's still a quarterback and a plus quarterback at that. He's not a bad quarterback. He's got some accuracy concerns, but you can start him. Jake Overman, he goes to Pitt. Jermon McCoy is a very interesting one. A guy who played really, really well this year for them. He decides to enter the transfer portal. I think that's going to be a hot name. He hasn't committed anywhere yet, but I think that's going to be a name to kind of be on the lookout for. Akili Arnold and Easton, not even going to try and say that last name. They both headed to USC, so they just lose some big pieces here. They're still one of the remaining Pac-12 teams, which is a miracle because it's them and I believe it's Washington State are the last 2 teams remaining. So we'll see if they're able to make some noise with a very cupcake schedule, but you lost some key starters on this team. I think it's going to be tough to replace 2 quarterbacks. You had your quarterback this year. You thought he might go to the NFL, and then you lose your quarterback of the future. It's going to be a tough situation for Oregon State, and I think they're a big loser right now. Another winner is Colorado. Colorado has done a fantastic job in the portal. We're not even going to talk about the 5-star Jordan Seaton, who they added via recruitment with top offensive linemen on the board. But you see 4 offensive linemen here. Khalil Benson, Justin Mayers, Tyler Johnson, and Yakiri Walker all are going to play huge impacts. Shadur Sanders is one of the top quarterbacks in college football. And now you've got pieces that can protect him. You also went out and you got huge weapons for him. Cordell Russell from TCU, Will Shepherd from Vanderbilt, which stay tuned, guys. I got something planned coming up in the future. Terrell Timmons as well, I believe from NC State. So they've got some new weapons. You got Walter Taylor, the quarterback transfer from Vanderbilt, and you improved the defense. Preston Hodges, one of the best safeties played for Liberty, who is a team that only lost one game all season. He looked fantastic. You got Chidozie Nwankwo out of Houston, a really good run stuffer. You got Quincy Wiggins and Samuel Okunlola out of Pitt and LSU. Both going to be huge pieces for this team. They added another defensive lineman I don't have on here from Alabama. They're making moves in Boulder. And I know the common thing to do, all this just for 5 wins. Well, let's not forget, they're headed to the Big 12 with a much easier schedule than they had this year. You're bringing back Travis Hunter. You're bringing back Shadur Sanders. You're bringing back Shiloh Sanders. You're bringing back a lot of that team that looked really, really good at times. There's a Colorado team that exceeded a lot of expectations. Only 3.5 wins. I know they didn't have a ton of wins on the record, but this is a Colorado team that was close with the USC. They were right in it with Stanford. They ended up blowing a massive lead, but this is a team that played better than I think a lot of people were expecting. They're going to improve the offensive line, improve the defense. This is going to be a top 25 team next year. I really do think that. I think Deion's doing a heck of a job, and Colorado's a big winner for me. Loser for me is Ohio State. Now, this team, it's not so much the players that they lost. Kyle McCord goes to Syracuse. Chip Trayanum goes to Kentucky. Evan Pryor to Cincinnati. Reed Carrico, you've lost some guys. All right. It's more just the fact they haven't been able to add anybody. Now, at the time of recording this, Cam Ward has not committed anywhere. There are a lot of rumors that Cam Ward is going to end up at Ohio State. But if he doesn't, I think Ohio State really lost out here because you've lost some pieces on the defense. You've lost some offensive weapons. And this is Ohio State, a team that you got an improved Big Ten with a lot of the Pac-12 schools coming over. Washington, USC, Oregon, UCLA coming over. And you really haven't made any moves to stay competitive. And I do think that is slightly concerning. Ohio State is a powerhouse. They had to get better. I don't think they've made enough moves at all to really improve. And they're a loser right now for me. Another winner for me. We got my next loser and my biggest loser here. It is the Texas A&M Aggies. They have absolutely tanked. This has been a complete disaster. You fire Jimbo Fisher, you bring in Matt Elko, and you're like, okay, maybe you lose Max Johnson, he goes to North Carolina. 5-star Walter Knowlton enters the portal. LT Overton enters the portal. Fadil Diggs, he's going to Syracuse. Overton's going to Alabama. You got Deuce Harmon, Jake Johnson, Tyreek Chappell, and then you lose Evan Stewart. They have lost multiple 4- and 5-star recruits that were going to help turn around this program, and it has been an absolute disaster. They haven't really brought anybody in, and Evan Stewart's going to be the top receiver in the portal. I think he is one of the best receivers in college football. He is going to be heavily recruited by a lot of teams. Max Johnson, a good quarterback, he's going to North Carolina. Walter Nolan, who was the best overall player in the entire portal, you lost out on him. Complete disaster from the Aggies. They haven't made any moves to replace a lot of talent that is headed outwards, and I think they're a big loser right now. And my final winner is going to be the Louisville Cardinals. They made a few moves here that I really, really like. The big one being bringing in Colin Lacey out of South Alabama. This is a guy who has been fantastic the last few years. He's going to go to the ACC and really improve his draft stock. You also brought in Ja'Cory Brooks, a receiver from Alabama who's battled injuries, but a guy who's got a lot of upside. You bring in Tyler Shaw from Texas Tech, another guy who just battled injuries, but he's got quite a bit of upside. Thor Griffith is a defensive lineman out of Harvard that's got a ton of upside as well. And then Corey Thornton, a DB. This team has made some really good moves. I think they are the favorites right now in the ACC for next year. You've got some nice pieces here. You've got an offensive lineman as well, Monroe Mills. This was a team that was a win away, beating Florida State from winning the ACC. Now you get more pieces on the offensive side of the ball. You get a better quarterback than Jake Plummer. I think this team could really contend in the ACC next year. But that's going to do it for me. Let me know who are your guys' big winners and losers down in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.